Hi everyone and welcome to Vintage Digital Watches. So this video is supposed to show the steps that I do whenever I get a new watch in. So what you will see here is exactly my process of adding a watch to my collection, the way I inspect it. If we're going to find some troubles, we're going to try to fix them, and everything centered around that. So a bit of background, I got this watch from Japan. I'm on a bit of a Ana Digi Temp craze. It was 5,000 yen, and I will insert an image of the auction here. And it is one of the more rare versions, and from the description it wasn't that easy to find. I stumbled upon it by accident. So without further ado, let's start working on the watch. Mind you, I haven't tried a new battery. If indeed it works, then I guess there won't be any repairs, just overall reconditioning of the watch. So we'll start off by taking off the bracelet. Now, whenever I work on a new watch, I always have a rule, and that is don't do anything on the case, no cleaning, no reconditioning, before you can certify that the module is working, because if the module isn't working, you will end up with a spanking new case, but nothing to put in it. So now we are going to open it, and always check for the correct place where you need to insert a case back opener, because you will see many watches where they are where they have marks around the entire edge where people along the years just kept opening the watches. I don't see any on this watch, which means it was taken care of, which is not something uncommon with Japanese items from Japan. And you can already see here we have the slit where we're going to insert this. Boy, that was so solid there. And we already have a battery installed. The batteries on these ones, they just unhook, which is pretty convenient. Now, if you already have a battery inside, it's worthwhile measuring if it has a charge, because if it has a charge and the watch isn't working, then there you go, your first issue. So we're just going to go ahead and measure the battery. And yes, this battery is completely drained. Here's the replacement battery, which has 1.5 volts. Usually when I put the battery in, it's a good idea to put also the battery retainer, because that may deliver voltage to other parts of the watch by the means of these little hooks. But you can already see here that it does have the plus pickup pad right here. But nonetheless, I am going to put the battery hook on. And fingers crossed. Hey! Well, I suppose that this video isn't going to be that long, unless I will just start cleaning about the watch. It appears to work, and let's test the microlight. Yep, it does work. We're going to cycle through the functions. Now, this dial can be set to see multiple things on the watch, and one of those things is the seconds. So right now we are going to select it to show the seconds. And now it would have just started to rotate and click essentially and show the seconds, but apparently it does not. So That's one of the faults we have right there. Now we're going to test and see if the other dial is working, and we're going to do that by setting it. And right now we are in the mode where we set the left dial. Yep, and we can see that that dial is in perfect working order, rotating nicely. And this is the mode where you are setting this dial to 0. And as we can see, I'm pressing this should start to move, but it does not, which means there's a fault right there. Okay, so let's try to fix that fault. Now you can see how beautiful this module is. This is an iconic module from Citizen. I'll probably do a more extended video in the future, but back to the fix. One important thing is when working with this module, it's good to have it in the case, because you see it has these little indicators. It also has the temperature sensor right here, which protrudes outwards. You can see there. And if you end up with it upside down, you are going to mess the indicators up. Maybe they will fall down, maybe they will bend. You will surely bend this sensor. So I only removed it just because, first of all, we want to remove this plastic part, which is held in by clips on the side. There we go. Must make sure not to lose the micro spring. And here we have the module. You can see that it has individual coils for each of these. Now we are going to remove the protective metal plate here. And I do believe this doesn't have any screws from my knowledge. It only has these metal clips on the side. We can also remove this front protective part if we are not confident enough with our screwdriver when we are removing the clips, not to damage it. Or just insert it from the side. This is just pressed in place. You can see it has these little notches. By the way, it's good to have a manual around. This is not the first time I'm opening a module like this, so I know the procedure by heart. Okay, so now that we have that removed, we have easy access to these clips, which we are going to unhook right now. And now, furthermore, we have this protective film right here, which is just laid on top. And there is the module. Now, we know that this dial isn't working, so that means that the fault is somewhere on this side. And we are going to inspect it under a microscope, but even with the naked eye, we can see that everything seems okay. The first troubleshooting point is going to be to measure this coil and make sure that it has the proper resistance. If it's infinity, then the coil is interrupted. If it has a value, I don't have the manual in front of me. I will open it right up, but it should be somewhere to within 5 or 2 kilo ohms. So now we are going to lay it back into the watch, because that's an easier way to work. And okay, so to remove the board, we have to remove these two little screws right there. You have to be very careful with the screwdriver in this area, because one slip will damage the coil and you just ruin the completely good watch. Almost completely good. So just do small turns. Now we should be able to remove the board. Oh, and there we go. Easy flip. Time to pull out the manual and check what that value should be. Okay, so here is the manual, and we are checking the bigger coil, which they call it additional coil unit, and this is a coil unit. So it's coil A, and it says here resistance value of additional coil unit 2.2 or between 2.2 and 2.8 kilo ohms resistance. If it has somewhere between that, it's non-defective. So we're going to check that right now. Okay, so the points that we have to check is that point versus that point. Those two traces lead up to the coil. Yeah, it's working. 2.46 kilo ohms, which means that this coil is good. What we want to do next is try to move with something really thin the wheels, because that way we will see if there is any resistance in the mechanism. And if we can do that, that means that we have a fault right here on the board, and what we will do on the board is we're going to have to measure the output for this coil. You can do these two operations in either order. You can start by checking the signal here and afterwards see if you can freely move the wheels. But I usually like to validate that the mechanical part is okay and then move on to the electronics. So now we're going to validate that we can freely move the wheels here with a piece of hair under the microscope. And I tried to move it with a piece of hair, and there was a lot of resistance. Now, yes, there is some gearing here. The easiest way to rotate it would be by this wheel, but if we use a piece of hair and try to rotate this one, it should easily move, and I couldn't. So we are going to try and move it with this. This is paper, and we can see that it's not springy at all, and there is some gunk here. I can show you right here on this part of the movement how easily you can just, and it's super jumpy. You can see I only touch it and it just really moves really easily. Don't know if it's obvious to you, but it is obvious to my touch that this one is a lot more clogged up. So since we're already here, we are going to remove this part, and we are going to clean these wheels and oil them back again. So this bridge is held in place with these two screws, which we are going to undo right now. And you can see that we have two wheels exposed. I'm sure there's another set of wheels somewhere underneath, maybe. But for sure we have to clean this one and this one. And this one is the rotor of the motor, because we do have here a small motor that will hold, that will magnetize to your tweezers, so don't worry about that. I am going to do this further on under a microscope because I can't quite see with my naked eye. Okay, so that other wheel was so tough. This one was so tough to remove from that spot. Now I'm 99% convinced that this is in fact the issue, the fact that these wheels have seized up because they haven't been working over the years. It's the only wheels we have here. This one is attached directly to the indicator on the other side, and you can see I already moved it because I touched it. Another thing we can do here is also remove the dial indicator from that wheel and also clean that wheel. Okay, and now I'm thinking actually if I should also do this side because I did see how clogged up this was. Okay, so now we are going to turn the watch over and remove that indicator so we can also pull this wheel out. One thing to mention is that we can set the watch on its back because we have these small plastic feet, which will ensure that we aren't touching any vital components of the watch when it's lying on its back. And now we are going to remove that with some indicator removers. So the way we're going to remove the dial indicators is we're going to use this tool and we're basically going to insert them underneath and then just pop it out. And we do have to protect the dial. There are special dial overlays which you can use, but I'm not sure they make them this small. What we are going to use is some kitchen wrapping foil. We're going to lay it over the top and just work through that. There we go. It is removed. How much gunk is in the two brownish holes. Those are part of the wheel train of the watch. We can see that on the jewel that it's fairly clean, but on these other ones there is quite a bit of corrosion, which we are going to clean out. This can also go through a special watch washer if you have that, great, or it can go through an ultrasonic washer. I do have the ultrasonic washer, but I do want to clean these using a sharp toothpick. We can see how much of a difference that is. Now those holes are looking nice and shiny, and they'll probably fix the whole issue with that dial. So now you can see I can move it with a piece of hair. Yep, and now we are going to assemble it back together and see if it works. I have high confidence it will. Okay, so here we have the module reassembled together. Mobius 9010 Synthelube. This is what I used for those wheels to lubricate them. And now it's all back together. The front dial indicator was pressed in. Basically, I just held a piece of kitchen plastic wrap and then I pressed it with a toothpick. That ensured that it didn't suffer any damage. So again, if you want to learn more about assembling and disassembling the mechanical parts of a watch, do go to the watch repair channel. You'll have everything there you need. Right, now for the moment of truth. It's time to see if this actually works. Okay, so we are going to insert it into the case. Okay, and yes, you can actually see it working properly. Okay, so while I was working, one of my lights went out, so I had to switch to this one. I hope you guys are okay. But what we wanted to check is if the left indicator was also working properly after that whole disassembly job. I did went ahead and do a clean there too. And yes, it is working as expected. So right now this is a fully functioning watch, which means we'll start working on the case and cleaning it up. There isn't much we need to do because it's already clean. We'll just get the gunk out just to make it look better. Okay, so we can see that there is a lot of gunk collected along this trim over the years, and even where these apparent screws are. The thing is that these four aren't screws at all, they are just decorative, and if you try to unscrew one, it will just rotate freely. I do assume, and I'm very well convinced, that you can remove this, and if you twist enough at these screws, they will just come out. I've seen that in other Citizens, these decorative bolts. They don't have any threads on them and they're just friction fit. But I did try to loosen up and only one gave way, the other ones were pretty stiff, so what I'll do, I'll just leave this on and just start cleaning with a mild brush around it. So there you go, that had a little bit of everything, some module fixes, some case cleaning and changing of the gaskets. I was really lucky that it didn't have a more difficult fault. So granted, yes, this wasn't something hard to do. Whenever I get a new watch in the collection, I try to allocate about 2 hours to work on it, just because there are chances of me within those 2 hours to get it up and running as I want it for the collection. I never allocate only 10 minutes because if I do that, my workshop would be overcrowded with open projects. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and do hit the subscribe button because I try to release as often as I can digital watch related videos. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.